On the night she was supposed to begin a new life with her husband, the truth she had hidden for years came out, and it left the entire village speechless. This wasn't just a secret, it was a curse that no one saw coming. Lulu had always been the picture of grace and kindness. In Duru village, she was known for her gentle demeanor, her radiant smile, and her unwavering compassion. She was the kind of person who would stop to help an elderly neighbor with their groceries or spend hours volunteering at the local shelter. Her beauty was not just in her appearance, but in her soul. When she met Ethan, a young man from a neighboring town, it seemed like fate. Their love story was one for the books, whirlwind romance, shared dreams, and a wedding that everyone in the village eagerly anticipated. The ceremony was nothing short of magical, with flowers adorning every corner and music that made hearts swell. But as the night wore on, something shifted. In the privacy of their wedding suite, as the moonlight filtered through the curtains, Lulu's true nature began to reveal itself. Ethan, who had always known her as the woman of his dreams, was about to discover that the woman he married was not entirely human. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Obiora was everything a village could hope for. Beautiful, kind-hearted, with an undeniable aura of grace. She had lived in Duru village for as long as anyone could remember, and for all those years, she had been the epitome of everything good and pure in their little world. People spoke about her in whispers, not just because of her beauty, but because of the way she made everyone around her feel. The women in the village looked up to her, admired her strength and calm, while the men, well, they couldn't help but fall for her gentle smile, her soft laughter that made everything seem brighter, more hopeful. Obiora's shop at the village market was a popular spot. She always had the freshest fruits and vegetables, and people swarmed to her stall, eager to get a glimpse of her. She always greeted them with the same soft, sincere smile that melted hearts. She was known to help anyone in need, and not once did anyone hear her complain. But there was something about her that kept people at a distance. For all her kindness, Obiora was an enigma. No one knew where she lived, no one knew where she came from, and no one ever asked. She always arrived at the market before the sun even peeked over the horizon and left long before the evening lights flickered on. No one knew the details of her life, her past. She kept it hidden, locked away. Then came EMA, a man with a charm that could captivate any heart. He was a newcomer to the village, a charming merchant with a quick smile and a gentle presence. He had heard whispers of Obiora, of her beauty, of her kindness. He was drawn to her the moment he laid eyes on her, the way people gravitated around her. But it was her heart, her quiet strength, that intrigued him most. EMA had never met anyone quite like her, and he couldn't help but be pulled in. He started visiting her stall every day, just to talk, just to see her smile. It became an obsession. But it wasn't just admiration, it was something deeper, something he couldn't explain. EMA didn't know it, but his heart was already entwined with a secret. Obiora, for all her kindness, had always been careful, cautious, never letting anyone get too close. Her past wasn't something she shared with anyone, it was something she had learned to live with, something she had long buried deep within herself. But the more EMA came around, the more Obiora felt a dangerous pull. She had spent so many years hiding, so many years running from the truth, but could she really keep her past locked away forever? Little did EMA know, the woman he was about to marry wasn't just a beautiful village girl. She was hiding something far darker, something that would change everything. There was more to Obiora than anyone could ever have imagined, and her secret was as deep as the forest that lay just beyond the village, the very place she came from, the place she had long since fled. Obiora had kept her life a secret for so long for a reason no one had ever dared question. But the truth was about to come crashing in, and no one would be prepared for the consequences. EMA wasn't prepared, and neither was Obiora. The closer they grew, the more vulnerable she became, the more the secret that had stayed buried for so long clawed at the surface. And with the wedding fast approaching, the tension built. What was she truly hiding? What was the danger she had been running from, and could she keep it from destroying everything she had worked so hard to build? The danger had always been there, lurking, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. It wasn't a matter of if it would come to light, but when. And that night, the night of her wedding, would be the night that everything changed. The more EMA visited Obiora, the deeper he found himself drawn into her world, a world that was as beautiful and serene as it was mysterious. Every day he grew more attached, more captivated by her quiet grace. She was everything he had ever dreamed of, and yet, as time went on, something about her seemed off, something that he couldn't quite place. As much as they grew close, there were always gaps in her story, moments when she would grow distant, lost in her thoughts. EMA noticed how she always seemed to disappear in the evenings, just as the sun dipped below the horizon. Every time he asked her where she was going, she smiled politely, but offered nothing more than a gentle, "I have my own things to tend to." The secrecy behind her movements lingered in the back of his mind, but he never pressed. He believed in the quiet peace she exuded, assuming it was simply part of who she was. She had earned his trust, and he respected her need for privacy. But the more time they spent together, the more EMA began to sense that there was something strange, something unsettling about these nightly disappearances. He couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something from him, something important. There was a heaviness in the air when she would leave, something that made his chest tighten. Why didn't she want anyone to know where she went? The villagers, too, had begun to gossip. They whispered among themselves about Obiora's late-night absences, but no one dared ask her directly. They were all too captivated by her charm to question her. It was as if she held some unspoken power over them. But EMA, more than anyone, wanted answers. One evening after the market closed, EMA offered to walk Obiora home. He wanted to finally understand what she was running from, or perhaps where she was going when she disappeared. She hesitated, but only for a moment, before agreeing with a soft nod. They walked in silence for the first few minutes, the quiet village streets bathed in the soft glow of the evening. The air was cool, and a breeze rustled the leaves on the trees as they made their way toward the edge of the village. EMA couldn't help but notice how calm Obiora seemed, how little she spoke. It was as though she were in a world of her own, untouched by the everyday troubles of those around her. And yet, the closer they got to the outskirts of the village, the more uneasy EMA felt. A cold shiver ran down his spine, and he could feel a tension in the air, something he couldn't explain. He chalked it up to nerves, perhaps his mind overthinking things, but the feeling wouldn't go away. The quiet was suddenly too quiet, the shadows in the trees too dark. Then it happened. EMA felt a chill, a coldness, sweep across the back of his neck. It wasn't just the night air. This was different. Something brushed against him like a hand cold as ice. He froze, his heart racing. He spun around, his mind trying to process what he had just felt, but when he turned, there was no one there. Nothing. Just the empty road behind him and the faint rustling of leaves in the distance. His pulse quickened, the sensation of the cold hand lingering in his mind. "Did you feel that?" EMA asked, his voice shaking slightly as he glanced over at Obiora. She turned to him, her expression unreadable. "Feel what?" she asked, her voice soft, almost too calm. EMA wanted to speak, to tell her what had just happened, but something stopped him. Maybe it was the look in her eyes, calm, collected, like nothing had happened at all. Or maybe it was the fear creeping into his own chest that held him back. "Nothing," he replied, forcing a nervous smile, his heart still pounding in his chest. They continued walking, but EMA couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. Every step felt heavier than the last, and the further they walked, the more the air seemed to press down on him. He had been so sure of Obiora, so sure that she was the one. But now everything felt different. His thoughts were clouded with unease, and the more he tried to dismiss it, the stronger the feeling grew. The rest of the walk was silent, but EMA could barely focus on anything but the cold hand, the odd sensation that still lingered in the back of his mind. He was beginning to wonder if he had imagined it, if his mind had played tricks on him in the quiet of the night. But deep down, he knew it hadn't been his imagination. Something had happened, something he couldn't explain. The next day, EMA didn't return to the market. He couldn't. His mind raced with questions, with doubts that he couldn't ignore. He told himself it was nothing, just a trick of the mind, but a part of him knew that something wasn't right. The feeling of unease, the cold hand that brushed against him, it all pointed to something deeper, something he was afraid to confront. What EMA didn't know, however, was that Obiora wasn't just any village girl. She wasn't even human. Everything changed the moment EMA decided to confront Obiora. He had spent days wrestling with the unease that had settled deep in his chest after that night, questions swirling in his mind like a storm he couldn't outrun. The sensation of the cold hand, the odd silence that followed Obiora's every move, it was all building up to something he couldn't ignore any longer. He had to know the truth. It was a quiet evening when EMA made up his mind. He couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. He couldn't keep pretending he wasn't scared, that the growing suspicion in his gut was just his imagination. Something had been off about Obiora, something no one had dared to question, and now he had to know what it was. There was no turning back. As the sun set behind the village, casting long shadows on the path, EMA found himself walking toward Obiora's house. His heart pounded in his chest, a strange mixture of fear and determination driving his every step. The closer he got to her home, the more his mind raced with the possible explanations. But nothing prepared him for what he was about to learn. When he arrived, Obiora was sitting outside, the soft glow of the lanterns illuminating her face. She looked serene, almost too serene, as if everything in her life was perfect and untouched by the world around her. "Obiora," EMA called softly, his voice laced with uncertainty. "We need to talk." Her eyes met his, and for a moment it felt like the whole world stood still. She didn't say a word. There was a calm in her gaze, but EMA could see something flicker behind her eyes. It was as if she knew this moment was inevitable, like the truth she had buried for so long was about to surface. "I need to understand," EMA said, his voice shaky but firm. "What's going on? Where do you really go when you leave every night? Why don't you ever tell anyone? What are you hiding, Obiora?" There was a long pause. The silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. Obiora stood up slowly, her eyes never leaving his, and then, in a voice that was quieter than he had ever heard it, she spoke. "You want to know the truth, EMA? The truth you won't be able to unhear?" His breath caught in his throat, but he nodded. "Yes, I need to know." Obiora took a deep breath, then stepped closer to him. The air around them seemed to grow colder, the village noises fading into the background as she began to speak. "I come from the deep forest beyond Duru," she began, her voice steady but filled with a strange sadness. "My family, they aren't human. They never were. We are shapeshifters, creatures of the woods with the power to change our forms at will. But me, I was born different. I am the only one of my family who can stay human. I was forced to keep that a secret, to live among you all, pretending to be just another woman from the village." EMA's mind was spinning. He took a step back, his chest tightening as he processed her words. "What are you saying, Obiora? That you're—" "I am not human, EMA," she said softly, her eyes filled with a quiet sorrow. "I am something older, something that doesn't belong in this world. My family tried to keep me with them, to keep me from the humans. They feared that my being here among you would bring disaster, so they made sure I never got too close to anyone. But I couldn't stay away from you. I wanted to live a normal life, to experience the love I never thought I could have, but now everything is falling apart. EMA stood frozen, the weight of her words pressing down on him. But why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you trust me with this? Obiora's eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. I never wanted you to know. I thought if I kept pretending, I could belong. I thought I could live like you, with love and acceptance, but my past, my family, it won't let me go. For the first time, EMA saw a crack in her composure. It was a brief flash, but it was enough to send a chill through his bones. The woman he had fallen in love with, his beautiful, kind, and perfect bride, was not at all who he thought she was. She wasn't even from this world. She had been hiding this dark truth for so long, and now it was all coming to light in a way he could never have imagined. The reality hit him hard. She had never been the ordinary village girl he thought she was. She was something far beyond that, a creature with a hidden past, a curse that had kept her at the edge of the human world. She had kept it all locked away, hidden from everyone, including him. But now, everything was changing. His thoughts raced, the implications of what she had just told him overwhelming. Was this a lie? Was she just trying to push him away? But the look in her eyes, the honesty in her voice, told him it wasn't. This was the truth, a truth he didn't want to face. And yet, as terrifying as it was, EMA couldn't walk away. Despite everything, despite the shock, he still felt drawn to her. He still wanted to be with her, but now he had to make a choice. Could he live with this truth? Could he love someone who wasn't even human? But EMA's next question, the question he was too afraid to ask, lingered in the air. Was it even possible to live happily with someone who had been hiding such a deep, dark secret? Was this love real? If this part is making sense, drop a comment with "I'm still here." Let's see who's really watching to this point. The answers he needed were just out of reach, but one thing was clear. His life, his entire world, was about to change forever. Obiora had always known that breaking free from her family's control would come at a cost. She thought that by choosing a life among humans, she could finally experience love and acceptance. But when she severed her ties with her family in the forest, her fate was sealed. Her parents, unwilling to let go, cursed her, saying she would never find true happiness with a human, that she would always be alone. They warned her that choosing this life would bring ruin, but Obiora was determined to live as a person, not a creature bound by ancient rules. Yet even now, as she walked among the people she loved, the curse lingered, and its weight grew heavier each day. As Obiora tried to integrate into the village, something shifted. EMA's family, once so welcoming, began to cast doubt on her. It started with EMA's mother, who couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right about Obiora. There was a chill in her eyes, an air of mystery that she couldn't ignore. She voiced her concerns to EMA, urging him to be cautious, but he brushed it off, thinking his mother was just paranoid. However, the truth began to surface in ways he couldn't ignore. And then came the revelation, the betrayal that would shatter everything EMA believed. His true intentions, hidden beneath the guise of love, were exposed. EMA had been using Obiora all along. He had been planning to marry her, not for love, but for her wealth. Once he'd taken what he wanted, he intended to leave her behind. The woman he once called his bride was nothing more than a means to an end. But now EMA was left in the gray area of morality. Was Obiora truly the victim, trapped by her curse? Or had she deceived him all along, hiding the truth about her past from him? And in the end, was EMA justified in his fear and his betrayal? Could he have ever known what she truly was? And if he did, would he have been able to love her anyway? It all came to a head on their wedding night, the night that should have marked the beginning of their life together. What was supposed to be a celebration of love and joy quickly turned into a nightmare. As Obiora and EMA prepared for their first night together, something horrifying happened. Obiora's body began to change. Her legs fused together, her skin became scaly, and before EMA could even comprehend what was happening, she had transformed into a giant python. A wave of terror washed over EMA. He stumbled back, his mind struggling to process the nightmare unfolding before him. Panic overtook him, and he ran out of the house screaming for help. The village, once filled with laughter and celebration, was now plunged into chaos. Villagers poured into the streets, their eyes wide with fear as they saw the giant snake slithering out of the door, its eyes locked on EMA with an eerie intensity. The peaceful night was shattered, replaced by confusion and terror. The villagers had never seen anything like it. As the panic spread, the oracle arrived. With the wisdom of many lifetimes, the oracle stood tall before the crowd, speaking in a voice that carried through the silence. The oracle revealed the truth. Obiora's curse was real. She wasn't just cursed by her family in the forest, but by the deceit of EMA. It was the betrayal of love, the darkness in EMA's heart, that had triggered the curse. The oracle's words hung in the air like a weight no one could escape. Now the villagers and EMA were left to face the consequences of their actions. What would happen to Obiora? Could she ever return to the life she had dreamed of? And what about EMA? Could he live with the knowledge that he had betrayed the woman he loved, and could he ever truly forgive himself? The oracle's decision was final. Now, it was up to them all to reckon with the choices they had made. What would the future hold for them? And more importantly, what lessons would they learn from the truth that had been hidden for so long? It was a moment of reckoning, one that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. As Obiora and EMA faced the consequences of their actions, we're left to ponder. Was justice truly served, or did the curse have a stronger hold on her than anyone realized? Was she doomed from the start, or did her own choices lead her down this dark path? The pain of betrayal, the weight of the curse, and the choices they made will stay with them forever. But what about you? What would you have done in their place? If this story hit you like it did us, hit that like button. It helps us reach more people, and subscribe if you want more gripping stories every week.